Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are diving straight into an ancient text, specifically the 18th chapter of Exodus. We're looking at the Council of Jethro and the Delegation of Justice. And let me tell you, this passage contains some of the absolute most relevant insights on leadership, organization, and just basic human endurance that you will literally ever read.
But hey, before we get into the actual history, I've got a question for you. Have you ever tried to do a totally impossible job entirely on your own? I mean, really think about that for a second. Think about that overwhelming, crushing feeling of carrying a massive burden. You know, an analyst's to-do list where literally everyone is looking to you for the answers, and you have absolutely zero help. It's exhausting just imagining it, right?
Well, you definitely aren't the first person to feel that way. Listen to these incredibly blunt words from Jethro to a son-in-law, Moses. He says, "The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away." Look, what we're looking at here is a brilliant, ancient, and honestly highly accurate description of what we today would call modern workplace burnout. And the way Jethro solves this, it's nothing short of an absolute organizational masterclass. So, to understand how we actually get to that breaking point, we need to start at the beginning. Part 1. A wilderness family reunion. Now, this starts out as a pretty simple family gathering, but it quickly builds into a massive spiritual celebration. First off, Jethro, who's the priest of Midian, arrives in the wilderness at the Mount of God, and he brings Moses' wife, Zipporah, and their 2 sons with him. After all the initial greetings and, bowing in the tent, Moses just lays it all out. He recounts the entire story of the deliverance. He tells Jethro about all the travails, all the intense struggles they faced along the way, and exactly how the Lord delivered them from the Egyptians. And man, this leads to Jethro just completely rejoicing for all this goodness and praising God. Finally, the whole reunion peaks with this beautiful sacrificial meal where Aaron and all the elders of Israel come to eat bread with Jethro before God. It's a huge moment.
And what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between the names of Moses' 2 sons. It's like looking at 2 sides of the same coin, because they perfectly encapsulate Moses' entire journey. So Gershom means, I have been an alien in a strange land. That represents the deep struggle, the displacement, the hardcore hardship. But then you have Eleazar. His name means, the God of my father was mine help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. So Eleazar represents that ultimate deliverance. These 2 boys literally carry the entire story of the Exodus right there in their names.
Hearing that epic story of struggle and deliverance, it clearly has a profound impact. Jethro responds with this incredibly powerful realization. He says, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly he was above them." I love this, because Moses' testimony sparked this deep foundational belief in Jethro. It's just a joyous, truly triumphant day.
But the joy of that reunion doesn't actually last very long, because the very next day, reality hits hard. Part 2. The heavy burden of justice. So Moses' daily routine brilliantly illustrates a massive centralized problem. Look at this timeline. In the morning, Moses sits down to judge the people. By midday, the people are still standing there by him. By evening, Moses is still sitting there, completely alone, acting as the sole centralized authority for a gigantic population. Literally from morning until evening, the people just stand around and wait. It is a grueling, totally unsustainable bottleneck. It's a traffic jam of epic proportions.
Now, when Jethro sees this happening, he naturally asks Moses, "Hey, why are you sitting alone while all these people stand around all day?" And what we get is a clash of 2 very different perspectives. Moses has this super noble, well-intentioned rationale. He says, "Well, the people come unto me to inquire of God. I do make them know the statutes." Basically, Moses wants to help them. He really wants to teach them the laws. But Jethro, he looks right past those good intentions and drops a highly practical, realistic assessment of this structural flaw. He says, "This thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone."
And that brings us to a really pivotal moment where Jethro just steps in and intervenes directly. Part 3, Jethro warns of burnout. Jethro delivers this absolutely crucial, undeniable truth: thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. And wow, isn't that the truth? It doesn't matter how gifted you are, how noble your cause is, or how much stamina you think you have. Jethro hits on a universal fact here: no single leader can sustain this volume of work. If Moses keeps going like this, he's going to wear away, and the people, they are going to wear away right along with him.
Fortunately, Jethro doesn't just point out the problem and leave. He actually provides the solution. Part 4. The blueprint for delegation. Now, before he even touches on the organizational structure, Jethro defines the people. He outlines some very strict character qualifications. Moses is told to provide out of all the people, able men, such as fear God, men of truth, and those hating covetousness. Notice what's being prioritized here. Yes, they have to be capable, but the emphasis is heavily on deep integrity, fearing God, loving truth, and rejecting any kind of corrupt gain. Because think about it, a decentralized system only works if the people given that authority are fundamentally trustworthy.
And this is where the absolute genius of Jethro's counsel really shines through. He proposes this incredible tiered leadership structure: rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. This setup divides that massive, overwhelming population into totally manageable blocks. And crucially, every small matter is judged locally at these different tiers. Only the hard causes, the really great matters, are brought all the way up to Moses. I mean, it functions exactly like a modern appellate court system or a corporate organizational chart. The workload is just brilliantly filtered.
So, the theory is flawless, for sure. But a theory is just a theory until it's executed. Part 5. Moses transforms the system.
The implementation here is incredibly swift, and honestly, step 1 is perhaps the most impressive. Moses hearkens to his father-in-law's voice and does all that he said. Actually, scratch that, it's not just impressive. It shows profound humility. Moses, the primary leader, the guy who led them out of Egypt, takes this constructive criticism and acts on it without hesitation. Next, he goes ahead and chooses those able men from all Israel. He implements the decentralized framework, making them heads and rulers, the thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s, so they can judge the people at all seasons, bringing only the toughest cases to him. Once the whole system is up and running smoothly, Moses lets his father-in-law depart, and Jethro heads back into his own land.
So why does all of this matter? Well, Jethro promised that if Moses did this, so shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. That's the real magic here. The ultimate goal of this entire new system was a shared burden. It ensured that the leader could actually endure the grueling work, and just as importantly, the people waiting in line wouldn't be frustrated anymore. They could go to their place in peace, knowing they receive swift and fair justice. It's a real win-win.
Which leaves us with a pretty compelling final thought to reflect on today. If even Moses needed a system to share the burden, where in your life could you delegate to walk in peace? You know, we so often try to carry the whole load ourselves, kind of tricking ourselves into thinking we're the only ones who can do it right. But as we've clearly seen from this ancient text, true leadership and true endurance require the wisdom to empower others. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I will see you next time.